In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Marianne's guests are leaders in their field, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in their own work. They teach others to develop, refocus, and grow. Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. And remember, make every moment count.
Welcome to Moments with Marianne. Today we have a very special guest. His name is Dr. Chris Hill. So Dr. Chris is the senior pastor of the Potter's House in Denver, Colorado, and the spiritual son of Bishop T.D. Jakes. Many of you know Bishop Jakes from being on Oprah. You've seen him speak there. And he also is involved with the Potter House as well. He champions a new understanding for life's journey. So Dr. Hill wrote this book called Walking to Jerusalem, Discovering Your Divine Purpose. So with this, Dr. Chris actually does go through and walk the path of David, and it relates it to our spiritual journey today. So let's go ahead and welcome Dr. Chris.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, well, thank you. We appreciate you taking the time to be on the show today. And my goodness, I mean, this is quite a book. I'm so curious what your inspiration was for writing this book.
Well, one of the things is I really began to do an in-depth study on the life of David. David is one of the characters in the Bible that we have really his entire life, from his inception to his anointing to his coronation to his second anointing, and just on to the grave. We have insight. The Bible is very open and very honest about his down sittings, his uprisings, all the different things that happened in his life. And as I was doing this study, I began to realize that there were certain cities that were really important toward his development. And so I wanted to we know that he ends up in Jerusalem, but I wanted to walk him all the way from Bethlehem to Jerusalem. And in the course of doing that, I began to see that this was far more than a study and far more than a history lesson. It was really an insight into what God is doing in the lives of people as he develops us into who he is divinely destined for us to be.
That is an amazing story. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. It really says a lot about you, because it takes a very passionate and amazing individual to really look at David's story and be able to put it together in a way that is relatable, because his story is very relatable. I mean, David was a shepherd boy, and God called him to be a king. But he was faced with all these challenges, just kind of like what we walk through every day. And, went through all that before he even received his crown. So in doing this story, how does this relate with your life? What are some of the parallels that you saw? For our listeners that probably don't know a whole lot about you, because I know you to be this dynamic, amazing person, but for our listeners that don't know about you, why don't you take a few minutes and tell us your story?
Well, what was interesting is I was studying David, I started to see so many similarities in my own story in terms of, I come from a very small neighborhood in a big city, and I really realized that my whole world was really encased in 4 to 8 blocks within my small town. I began to see that all of us in some way have come from a small town, a group of people that are around us, and God develops us in those places. Now I get to senior pastor in our churches, 6 years old, 7,000 member church here in Denver, Colorado. But a lot of the ministry that we do comes out of what I experienced growing up in my Bethlehem, which was Boston, Massachusetts. Growing up in those situations, when I was 6 years old, I ran away from home. Most kids run away from home, but when I run, I really run. I was gone for a year in terms of there was very, very hard physical abuse in our family, and I just couldn't take it anymore. So I I lived in the streets of Boston as a 6-year-old for one year, through the winter, through the cold,
Wow.
and I get to talk a little bit about that experience and really reflect on it and see what I saw now is that now that people ask why do we have one of the largest homeless ministries in Colorado, it's because I was homeless. Why do we have one of the largest feeding programs in Colorado? It's because I know what it is to be hungry, and I think from my pain, great power was produced. And I think that Bethlehem experience, although it was very painful for me, has produced the compassion and the love to want to help people as I'm walking what I feel is in my Jerusalem today.
What a powerful story. And I think a lot of people can relate to that one way or another, regardless what's going on in their lives. They either have gone through that type of pain or they know somebody that's close to them that's going through that type of pain. So it's a very human story. Now, I know that your story shares the parallels with David's humble beginnings. Do you mind taking a few minutes and just reminding us what those parallels are?
Yeah, as we look at David, I mean, he's a shepherd boy. We all know that, but he's in the city that's 6 miles away from Jerusalem. It's known for wheat and barley. It's a nondescript town, and yet there a king is being raised up. God sends a prophet to speak into his life and to declare something that was probably sounded preposterous for this little shepherd boy, that one day he would rule and reign in all of Israel. And I think sometimes God brings us prophecies to those small places, those obscure moments. He gives us promises for our future. And here's the thing is that it's 20 years before David walks into that realization. He has to be processed. He's going to go through Gibeah, and we walk through Gibeah. He goes through Ziklag. We walk through Ziklag. We actually get to see that each and every step, each and every city on that road to Jerusalem is instructive and important for making him into who he is. One of the things I really want to do with the book is to encourage people to embrace the city that they're in, or to really embrace the cities that they've walked through. The things that God did in my life and my Bethlehem and those dark times and those hard times really made me stronger and prepared me for what God wanted to do in my life. And I believe that's true of every believer, that even those dark moments in our lives are producing the brilliance and the strength that God wants to use to bless somebody else's life in the future.
Oh, that is absolutely beautiful. And, it really has a lot of parallels with the theme for this month, in regards to, people walking through their pain, but how that develops us as, if we can't step into a role of leadership without knowing what it's like to go through all the challenges that lead us there. So,
absolutely. I mean, looking at David, he had an encounter with really an insane leader. Saul, by the time David meets him, is demonized, is problematic, and murderous. And yet, for some reason, God saw fit for him to be exposed to that leader so that David would be a better leader in the future. I think some people teach us things by the things they do right, but there are others that teach us things by the things that they do wrong that become instructive to us, and we make those kinds of promises and say, hey, Lord, if you ever bless me with an opportunity to lead, I'm going to do it this way. I think we can learn from both the negative and the positive. And the goal, of the book is, I take us to Ziklag is one of my favorite chapters in the book, and it's really a place where David learns to encourage himself. He learns to rely on the Lord and to find sustenance and support from the Holy Spirit, because at that point in his life, everyone had walked out on him. Everyone was disappointed. His own mighty men were ready to stone him. And when you're in those situations where you feel alienated and alone, and people are assassinating your character, they're assassinating your future and your destiny, we have to learn how to dig down deep into the well of the Holy Spirit, and I believe that he is able to empower us to believe that we can make it, and we can be encouraged in the Lord. So all these different cities, and it was such fun we went to Israel, and I tracked David through the dust, and from Bethlehem and all the way to Jerusalem, to Hebron, and through the city of Saul, Gibeah, and just each city, just being in the context of it, helped me to understand that it doesn't matter where you start. It really matters where you finish. But the steps along the way are as equally as important because God is using them to make you into who he wants you to be.
Mm. That must have been an amazing journey, walking David's steps. How many years did it take for you in development for this book?
I have been dreaming this book for 10 years. I started I started a study on him, and I preached a message because I'm a preacher, and then that turned into a seminar, and then when you preach something, it's like a fast rain. When you preach or teach, it's a mighty rushing rain. But sitting down to write it, that really caused me to have to do some real reflection and to see the parallels in my life. And then the different stories, I get to include some stories of people that I've met in the course of our 20 years of ministry, and to see how each city, they walk through that city too. They walk through discouragement. They walk through the city of revenge. They walk through these different spaces that made them stronger. So when we really sat down to say, okay, I need to write this thing, everyone's been requesting it, and I had to kind of take the time because I was going to share my story, and I really hadn't done that. I hadn't. I've always preached with passion, but kind of standing behind the characters of the Bible and not really opening up my own story, because there was so many intricacies within my family. I was kind of raised in the family that what happens in this house, stays in this house. And so that agreement of silence. But really, as I began to look at it and share with my family what I wanted to share with the world at this point in my journey, they agreed and they began to see that it had made me stronger. It had made me better. It made me a better father, a better husband, and really a better person in general. And I wanted to open that up and look through the lens of the life of David to see our own lives.
Mm. Well, and I think a lot of families can relate to that, if they're in situations where there's abuse or just, a dysfunctional relationships that dwell within the family, it's really tough. There's always that silence. And so to be able to talk about it and be able to free yourself in that way is so empowering.
Yes. I think that's been the effect that the book has been having as we've been sharing it this month, is just when I dared to open up what I'd gone through, and, I talk about going through foster care. I talk about living in a stranger's house, and I talk about, just some of the hardest times of my life, being separated from my family system. And I also get to talk about being reunited and trying to find a way to forgive. I really discovered that forgiveness is a process. There's no one starting point of forgiveness and here's the ending point and it's all done. No, I have to constantly remind myself to forgive constantly, unlock the pain, and allow God to put his grace in there for myself and for my loved ones.
Well, I definitely feel our listeners should pick up your book because I've come across, especially this month, it's kind of interesting that we're having this discussion now, but I've come across a lot of people with that kind of pain, where they're going through, trying to heal from childhood upsets, abuses, those kind of things. And so following this story with David really brings home how, we really need to have faith in God in order to
Absolutely.
walk our path, because that's what David's story is kind of about.
Absolutely. I mean, David he's rejected. He's forgotten. His brothers don't invite him to the party. When he shows up in the valley of Elah, I call that the city of transition. He's there. He's going to face David. David faces Goliath there. But when he shows up, his brothers treat him terribly. You know, he's just obeying his father and coming to the battle lines, and they think that he's haughty and stuck up. How many of us have been misunderstood by our own family members, or had our motives questioned by people who should know us the best? He walked through all those things, and I think it's so instructive for us, because if you just keep on walking, you get to the next city. You'll get to the next city, but also God is going to strengthen you in the city that you're in, so that you learn the lesson and you're able to lean on Him.
Yeah, and that's definitely where all of our strength comes from, is that relationship we have with God. So
Absolutely.
In one of the questions I have here for you is, what role does gratefulness play in our journey to living our divine purpose?
I think we have to be grateful. We have to be grateful for the good, the bad, and the ugly. Paul says in Romans that all things work together for our good. I promise you, there have been times in my life where I couldn't see the good. I just could not see the good.
I get that.
You know.
Yeah. I think we all have that story.
Yes. I mean, Lord, I know you love me, but what is good about this? But if we can learn to be grateful, if we can learn to say, Lord, I trust you, I think gratefulness is really based on trust. David's intercession with the Lord, the Psalms that we sing and write and read today are built on his private relationship with the Lord that's just gone public on the pages of Holy Writ, that we have now his Psalms, his songs for each and every stage of his life. And we get to share that in the book, because if we can't be grateful, you can't be graduated. Gratefulness is, I believe, is a step to the promotion to the next city. When I can say, Lord, I don't like this, but I thank you that you even trusted me with trouble, because the trouble that I went through is just preparing me for the greater thing that you have for my life.
No, definitely. Most definitely. I mean, it's hard to realize how much light that we have, or, how much God has blessed us, if that's all we're standing in, and everyone has situations where they're like, oh my goodness, I did not sign up for this, or this is like the worst of the worst, But I really appreciate your story, because I really feel like having that connection with God and being in gratitude is such an important, it's an important step. And, the worst thing would make you just a happier person,
Absolutely.
And sometimes I know I look back in my life, because, everyone has challenges that they have to overcome. But I look back in my life and I'm like, wow, during that time, I did not see that as a good thing at all.
Exactly.
But my relationship with God is really what pulled me through.
Exactly. And David I like dealing with his life, because we see all of the twists and turns. He finally is in a family system that seems supportive. He's married into the king's family, and we watch that relationship turn. And Saul is trying to kill him. He's living in caves. He's running here and running there. One of the cities we get to deal with in the book is the cave of En-Gedi. And he's in a situation where he can take revenge on King Saul. God walks Saul right into a trap where David is there. He's uncovered and he's unprotected. His guard is away from him. And the guys that are with David are like, hey, man, this is it. This is your chance to take revenge. let's end this now. And David really shows his maturity and his understanding of divine process in that he will not raise his hand to touch Saul. When we're in those kinds of situations where we have a justifiable reason to be angry, and yet we decide and determine to dig into the well of the grace of God and extend it to somebody else who doesn't deserve it. We have to understand that, that's one of the hardest things in the world to do. David passes that test, and I like getting to share that in the book on how we can release revenge and release the anger and be free to be what God wants us to be.
That is absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Well, I know I'm in Colorado. I know we're blessed to have you here preaching. Where can people find you when they, either if they're in the state or if they come through and visit in Colorado?
Oh, absolutely. I pastor. I'm blessed to serve as the senior pastor of the Potter's House of Denver, right here in the southeast sector of Denver, Colorado, and we're all over social media. The book has kind of taken us to a whole nother place, and so we're on Twitter and Facebook, and the book is available everywhere. So it's been an amazing journey so far, just as we begin to share. I really believe that God has a divine destiny and purpose for every single life. I believe that God has planned us and purposed us, and we can find out that destiny and then walk toward it. I also believe that each step toward it, it may not be easy, but it's going to be instructive, and it's going to make you stronger for what God has called you to be.
Absolutely beautiful. Well, Dr. Chris, thank you so much for being on the show today. I mean, you are such a powerful inspiration, and your story is absolutely moving. And I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us, to talk about your book, and share your time with us today.
Oh, it's my absolute privilege. I could talk about this book all day. It's really my life story and my life message,
Yeah, well, and I definitely will be joining you at the Potter House this next coming up weekend. I do want to be there and, meet you in person and shake the hand of the man that wrote such a profound book. So
thank you so very much. I'm so excited.
Oh, well, thank you. And for our listeners, you can find out more about Dr. Chris Hill at chrishill.org.
If you're lucky enough to be in Colorado, you can go to Dr. Chris Hill's church, the Potter House, which is located in Denver. You can also pick up his book, Walking to Jerusalem. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, and all major retailers. We have another exciting segment coming up for you, so stay tuned. We'll be right back after this break.
In 2012, after returning home from Iraq and Afghanistan, Sean Gobin hiked over 2,000 miles of the Appalachian Trail. Recognizing the therapeutic effects of long-distance hiking, Sean founded Warrior Expeditions, a veteran nonprofit therapy program that supports veterans transitioning from their military service by hiking America's national scenic trails. Equipment and supplies are provided, as well as assistance with job placement. For more info or to help support these veterans, visit warriorexpeditions.org.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
Have you ever had the sense that your thoughts might actually be doing something? Ancient secrets of manifesting have been masterfully revealed in the award-winning book Manifesting 123 by Ken Elliott. For the first time, the author's experiences and stories in this book describe exactly how your thoughts can create anything. You've been doing this all your life, but it's never been fully explained for you until now. Visit manifesting123.com for more information today. Manifesting123.com.
Are you an author looking for publicity for your book? If you're self-published or have worked through a traditional publisher, Marianne Pestana can help you get the media attention you require. Contact Marianne Pestana, literary publicist and host of Moments with Marianne, to create a winning plan of action. Marianne has helped authors become bestsellers and has received highly acclaimed media attention for her clients. Some of her work has received attention from ABC, NBC, CNN, CBS, Fox, and PBS, in addition to print and radio. She's a specialist in utilizing social media and her list of exclusive contacts to further the reach of your work. Contact MariannePestana.com to discuss the future of your work today.
During times of uncertainty, challenges, and change, how do we find a ray of hope to move forward? In Amy Van Adde-Slater's best-selling book, Moments, Magic, Miracles, and Martinis, she offers a torch of inspiration, motivation, mindfulness, and authenticity that illuminates even the most desperate of situations with possibility. Order your copy today to see what the buzz is all about at www.amyvslater.com.
Ben Wexler is a gifted leadership development and strategy consultant for professionals who want to transform their organizations and careers. Through a uniquely personalized set of processes, participants discover their unique knowledge, how to leverage that knowledge and experience, and then put it all together with a global strategy. You're more valuable, your organization is more valuable, and the change is viral. Contact Ben at 630-881-1074, 630-881-1074.
Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. There's been a lot that's been going on this month, and I just want to take a few moments before we start our show to just take a brief moment of silence for all the people affected by the Orlando shooting. The family, the partners, just everyone involved, because when that took place, it wasn't an event that just happened in Orlando. It touched everyone's heart. And you can definitely see that from the outpouring of the world. So let's just take a brief moment for a quick prayer for them. So we're going to start off the show today talking about being in integrity in our relationships and in our lives. And sometimes that can seem like quite an easy thing, or maybe sometimes an elusive thing. But when we're in integrity in our lives, it has a lot more to do about who it is that we are and how we show up in the world, other than how other people are reacting or acting towards us. So one of the things, and this actually is something that recently happened, and I'm sure lots of people can relate to this. I'm not the only person that goes through different challenges. But have you ever been faced with a bully? And it could be like a bully at work, maybe in a social situation, maybe you have a friend that's a little bit of a bully. And when these types of personalities or these situations show up, a lot of times it gives us the opportunity to look deep inside and see what's going on with us that we are attracting or bringing these types of people back into our space. So maybe we haven't gone through and taken inventory of our friends and really kind of looked at that, because maybe the friends that served us well as teenagers might not be the healthiest people to hang out with today. Or it could be an abusive family member, whatever the case is. But really take stock of who it is that we spend our time with. And then when we really look deep down inside, when we're dealing with bullies and having to go through different situations, it's about us staying in integrity in how we respond to them. So, and I've talked about this before because it's something that's a challenge to me. I'm sure it's a challenge to a lot of people. How can we show up and be present and be able to go ahead and assert ourselves without using aggression? And that's kind of the caveat. So a lot of times when bullies come up, we want to poof up our feathers and either take them on, or we want to go ahead and let them walk all over us. However it is we respond to them, there's another way of doing a response that you can smile and be joyful and stay within your personal integrity and still be able to expressively say, no, thank you. That's not going to work for me. That's not something I care to do. However it is that you're choosing to address the situation, but it can always be done with grace. And a lot of times when we have bullies that are showing up in our lives, it makes me think, where am I showing up as a bully in someone else's life? I know they talk a lot about if you spot it, you got it. So if bullies are showing up, how am I being a bully? Am I turning into like the lead-foot demon when I'm, sitting in my car driving around? Am I cutting people off? Am I doing road rage? Am I being unkind to people who maybe I go to a restaurant and I'm not so kind to the server? Where am I showing up as a bully in my life? And the thing is a lot of times if we're spotting that in our existence, there's something going on that we need to take a strong, hard look at. So a lot of times it has to do with deep reflection into who it is that we are and what it is that we stand for. And I understand sometimes we can be in situations where maybe it's an abusive relationship or abusive boss. We're dealing with bullies at work or in our home environment. Regardless where that might be occurring, it's a few things that we need to take into consideration. One is we need to change our space then. So if we're in a situation where we're in a marriage we're being bullied, or in a work environment where that's taking place, we need to probably look at moving our situation where we're finding ourselves in either a healthier environment, or we're getting counseling. Something's going on that we're making a positive step forward. And if not, then you need to remove yourself from that environment. Now, one of the important things is when we are dealing with bullies, again, it's probably a lot to do with what's going on with us that's attracting that to us, and how can we stop that cycle? So one of the things that I've done in the past in dealing with bullies and staying in integrity is to disengage from interactions with them. So where they have the hook is they want to say something and you say something back, or their emails flying back and forth, or what have you. And in situations like that, short emails that, like 1 sentence, 2 sentence emails if you have to respond in a work situation, that politely answer whatever questions are going on, but keep things short and sweet and don't get into any of the drama. Don't take things personally. A lot of times we never know what the other person's walking through. Maybe they're having a difficult situation themselves. Who knows what they're going through? So we do have to offer a little bit of compassion, but that doesn't mean that we are a doormat. So what we end up doing is keep communications clear, non-personal, and succinct. So that way when they look at it, their questions are being answered, we're polite, but we're not engaging in the drama. And a lot of times, if we are dealing with bullies and they want to keep that engagement going back and forth, they want to see how far they can take it. So I know we were talking at the beginning of the show, I have stuff like that happens, and recently had somebody that was being somewhat of a bully, and I looked at the situation, answered their questions, and I believe I stayed within my integrity, being graceful and not engaging. So, it really is an interesting thing, because a lot of times, we might consider someone's being bullyish in nature, and there's different degrees of everything, of course, but being somewhat of a bully in nature, and they might think that they're really not. So it could be based on perception, depending on what's going on. I mean, if you're in an abusive situation, obviously it is what it is. But again, removing yourself from the situation, doing it with grace and compassion, really has you in the overall picture coming out ahead, regardless what is going on. So it's always so important to make sure to respond to people as you would want to be responded to, regardless of the situation. Because we definitely don't want to be brought down to somebody else's level. If they're in the muck and mire, let them stay there if that's where they want to be. But we don't necessarily have to be a party to that or be involved in that. So it was very interesting. I had a couple questions that were sent to me that really prompted the show, and things that show up just, of course, when you set the intention, you're going to talk about bullies and staying in integrity, and then you kind of find out, ooh, it's not really about them. It's kind of about me. So it's about my boundaries that I set forth in life, and what ends up happening is it's not let's fix that person. It's let's fix myself. What's going on in me that's causing this kind of stuff to go on? Am I aggressive when I respond to people, causing that friction? Am I doing my best to be kind, patient, and generous? And I, don't mean a doormat. You can be generous with your time, generous with, your compassion. So one of the questions I got here was, let me get this here just a minute. Okay. So Marianne, I'm dealing with a bully constantly at work, and they seem to enjoy getting me upset all the time. What can I do to shift what is happening here? Okay, and this is from Lissa. So Lissa, I appreciate you taking the time to write in. In situations with work situations, there's always protocol that you can go ahead and report as you go up, depending on the severity of the bullying that's taking place. I would say also, to take a strong look at your behaviors and what it is that you're doing. It doesn't matter what our neighbors do. We've got to keep our side of the street clean. So take a strong look at what you're doing, so you make sure that you're always walking in integrity with your head high, and make sure that you are treating this person with love and compassion, regardless what's going on. And I would say also offer some prayers on this person's behalf. Prayer is a powerful thing. So we do the compassionate, prayerful, staying in grace portion, But then we also have to, depending on the severity of what's going on, then take it to your supervisor. And there's always protocols at work situations to go ahead and address such situations. If you find yourself in a work situation that's not a possibility, then, there's always great places to be a part of and to work at. So you want to be at a place that makes your heart sing when you go there in the morning. You don't want to have to look at it like, oh God, I have to go here. So really assess your situation and see how you have contributed to this at some point or any point. And, pray for the other person, and then go do your due diligence and talk to your supervisor and or their supervisor or HR to go ahead and see about getting that resolved. So, great question. Thank you for writing in, Alyssa. I really appreciate you writing in. When I have done some soul searching to see how I'm involved in situations and maybe not staying in integrity 100% of the time, because gosh, that can sometimes be a tough thing, but it's so freeing when you do. A lot of times what I'll do is I will look at a situation and make my pro and con list. And especially when you're dealing with a bully, you really want to make the pros and cons about you. So again, it's not the other person, it's us. So how can we look at this and make changes? And a lot of times when I go through my pros and cons list on how I handled the situation or where I could have done better, it allows me to assess just how I am in the world and make those shifts to being a better person. And the thing that's interesting is that situations like that will be less and less and pretty much just really shift out of your experience, because it's not something that, first of all, will get your goat or will even get a rise out of you. And then when it does show up, you're handling it with such grace and integrity, there's no chance that that is even going to be an issue. One of the things that my mentor, Judy Goodman, has said many times, and it has been kind of my go-to answer when I'm having a bad hair day, is I'll just say, gosh, I'm so sorry I didn't handle that well. Let me try again. And then it allows me to go ahead and put myself back out in a little bit better light. And the person knows that I'm trying to make amends or trying to address something as best as possible. And granted, when we deal with bullies, and there's all, again, varying degrees, we really want to make sure that we do what we can to keep our side of the road clean, because that's really what it's all about. People can act a certain way. We don't have control over what other people say and do, but we sure do have control over how we react and act. So the thing is once you start practicing staying in integrity when dealing with bullies, and that's not allowing them to get a rise out of you, keeping the conversation very short and to the point and polite, it really allows for there to be a space for greater development on my side. And it may shift the energy between me and this other person. So if I don't always go, oh, there's George, great, I got to go talk to this guy, not looking forward to it. If I show up like that, chances are it's not going to be a good discussion. But if I show up like, well, there's George, bless his heart, I wonder what he has to say today. The shift in energy is totally different, and I'm taking responsibility for what's showing up in my space. So all these things are so important, and at the same time, they seem like small little things, but they make such a huge difference in how we not only are showing up in the world, but we get to respond as opposed to react. So it's a very thoughtful process. And let me tell you, it's not easy. A lot of times, many of us have grown up where we can be pretty quick to come back with a response or answer, you name it. And when that happens, it's like, whoa, okay, let's kind of hold back a little bit and not be so sharp with our tongue. And let's see what we can go ahead and do to just listen to what the person's really saying. So a lot of times when people are acting out in the way they're acting out, if you have a bully and they're pushing, they want something from you, chances are that they are operating from a place of fear, or in anger is basically the root cause of that is fear as well. So there's something that they're fearful about in not getting as far as their needs met, as far as being able to show up in a certain way. And so when we take that into consideration, it offers us a great deal of compassion in dealing with other people. It's that old, there's that quote that goes around, hopefully I'm not butchering it, but it says something to the effect of, be kind to all those that you meet, because we don't know, the path that they're walking or the war that they've gone through, the battle that they've gone through. I used to know that so well, and unfortunately I think I just messed that up, but you get the gist of it. And so what it's saying is we just don't understand the trials that other people are having to face. A lot of times, when you see people who, they look like the perfect couple, and then you all of a sudden hear that they're getting a divorce, you realize, well, maybe they weren't that perfect after all. People don't really show us everything that's going on. And that's appropriate, but at the same time, so we never know what people are going through. And offering compassion really puts us in a place where nothing can throw us off our path. And that's really where we want to be, is to be able to show compassion to people. I think having Dr. Chris Hill start this hour was a perfect way of starting the conversation. Typically I don't talk about God because it could be related in many different ways, the universe, lots of different religions call God different things. But I think it's important to have a relationship with God, your higher source, the universe, whatever you choose to call him. In my case, I call him Father. It's so important to have that relationship and be able to draw on that. And it's really interesting, as I've gone on my spiritual path and gone through my walk, a lot of it is so important in my relationship to Father. It all kind of comes back to that. And so it brings me back to some of the core concepts is, treating other people like the way you would like to be treated, and really being a good person, trying to do the best you can in every situation. There's lots of core concepts that really ring true today, regardless how old they are. This reminds me of a Bible quote by Mark 8:36. What will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his own soul? How true is that? And again, just a reminder that we need to keep our side of the street clean, regardless what's going on and what other people are doing. All right, so we have time for one more question. This one is from Hope. So Hope's writing in, I often struggle with staying in integrity. I find that I get sucked into gossiping with friends or at work. So Hope, in situations like this, it's best to start just removing yourself from the gossip sphere, because that really is a place that doesn't serve anybody. It really tears people down, and I'm sure that you know this. I've had to go through this where I was surrounded by a group of friends, and man, we like to get together and gossip about this person, that person, who's doing what. And so when I removed myself, not from my friends, but when the gossiping would start, I would get up and walk away or see if I could politely change the conversation or just not engage if someone's saying, well, is so-and-so dating? I would just say, wow, I really don't know. That's a really good question for that person. You should go ask. So just stay on, again, we're keeping our side of the road clean. So you just want to stay out of those kind of discussions. And then in turn, what I would do is if you're finding that there are things that are really weighing on you that you feel that you need to get out, sometimes people feel a little bit better when we talk with other people. I would suggest if you don't have a trusted mentor that keeps all things private and confidential, I would definitely search one out. It's always good to have a spiritual mentor. I have both a spiritual and business mentor. Her name is Judy Goodman, and I can't recommend her highly enough. You can go to her website at judygoodman.com. But having somebody that you can really entrust 100% with whatever it is that you say, if it's something's weighing on you, that's so important because it's like we don't go and take our trash and leave it all over our neighbors' lawns. We don't do that. So why would we do that verbally? And this is also a part of staying in integrity. So what we do instead is we talk to our trusted person. If we don't have a trusted person or you feel that that's not really the route for you, then journal about it. Keep a private journal and journal about it. And just allow yourself to process and get that stuff out. And then go on with your day. We are so lucky. We have, so much to be grateful for. First of all, number one, that we are alive and get the opportunity to be on this planet doing what it is that we're doing, that we get to help so many people along our path, that we have a roof over our heads, a hot meal, people that we call friends and or family, and a community that we belong to. I mean, there's lots of things to be grateful for. So even if you think, gosh, why should I be grateful? I could barely make the bills. There's, all this tragedy going on. A lot of people kind of get overwhelmed with the state of the world. But the thing is that being in gratitude and thanking God, the universe, our higher being, whatever it is that you pray to, thanking them for all the things that we have currently in our lives to be grateful for, and then staying in that gratitude as we walk our path. So as we're meeting other people and going out in our walk throughout the day, we come in contact with this bully, and then we stay in our gratitude and in our integrity, there's very little that can throw us off our path. So it's a great place to be in. I would strongly suggest making pros and cons of areas where you have been a bully or not shown up in integrity in your life. And this isn't to get down on you. It's just to get it out and also to assess it. So when I first started business, one of the things I would do constantly when I would go do presentations, I would afterwards completely assess what it is that I said and did. And it was so that I could become better at what it is that I do. And we have to do that in our walk in life. Some people are so graceful and it's so natural to them, where other people, we have to really work at it. And it's not second nature. It might be something that we have to really develop, but it's not something that can't be done, which is really good news. So you want to have your pros and cons list, things that you do very well, things that maybe are weighing on you, or things that that you're not so good at. Impatient when in line, crazy driver. And I'm bringing this up because I see this a lot. And in doing that, it made me kind of look at Am I in a really big rush to go places? Am I tailgating somebody? Am I just kind of not even thinking? And it's so important not to be aggressive in any areas of our lives. And so in doing that, we really want to look at everything. So, crazy driver, tailgating people, rude when things don't go my way. Whatever it is that you've got, make your list, because this is really your list between you and the universe, your higher power, God, Father, whatever you would like to call that. So make that list and then look at your positive list. And then in doing that, realize, gosh, you know what? I didn't do that so well last time, but I'm doing it better now. So once you start having that realization that things can be better, it's amazing. They do get better. And then you'll notice when, gosh, I wasn't really patient with that person, or I could have done better at, in the way that I responded. So those personal assessments, it isn't that negative talk in your head. So, let's not confuse those. It's really taking assessment of what is it that we say and do as we're getting in touch with people and interacting with other people so that we can make adjustments so we can be better. So I know a few people, they have the grace thing down. Judy's one of them. Another dear friend of mine, Ken Elliott, probably one of the most graceful gentlemen you'll ever want to meet. Very graceful, very gracious. So when you talk with him, it's such a joy. It really is such a joy to be able to have a conversation with him. And so for other people, in me in particular, it's a journey. So there are parts where, yes, I could be very gracious, and other times I get thrown in the bushes. So this is something I work on constantly as well. I guess I know this path way too familiar. It's a familiar path, but hey, I'm getting better. And the things that used to throw me off my path before are not doing so now. So there is a light at the end of the tunnel. So thank you, Hope. Great question. I so appreciate you taking the time to write in and share that. So for all of our listeners out there, I'd like to thank you for tuning in today. And remember, make every moment count.
Join us next time for Moments with Marianne, when host Marianne Pestana brings another inspirational gifted leader to help us grow. Tune in every second Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time for Moments with Marianne, when the Dream Vision 7 radio network is at 1510 a.m. Boston. Or catch Moments with Marianne every Thursday and Friday at 5 p.m. and 5 a.m. Eastern Time by going to dreamvision7radio.com. To learn how Marianne started her business from the ground up, visit mariannepestana.com. Don't miss this, and remember, make every moment count.